Real estate investment presentation. Short sale. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. As we define short sale, you want to think about the definition and how it relates to your overall real estate investment strategy. We're referencing Investopedia, James Chen, Investopedia being a place you can go to look up investment-related terminology, continuing your research from there. The term short sale in real estate refers to a sale that takes place when a financially distressed homeowner sells their property for less than the amount due on the mortgage. We talked about distressed sales in general in the past, they distorting the relationship between the buyer and the seller typically having some pressure in order to sell, oftentimes that pressure, financial pressure, meaning they're at a disadvantage, the buyer then often at an advantage at that point. When we look at real estate transactions, we have the big third-party player involved as well, that being the bank. You can imagine then the seller being in a financially distressed situation, possibly needing cash flow, needing to sell the big asset, the property, and then the bank being concerned about that as well because that property is the collateral on the loan that they have given out. And we have the added factor with the short sale being that the property of the home is now less than the loan amount, meaning it's basically underwater. So clearly the bank is going to be in a concerned situation in that situation because the sale will not result in the proceeds necessary to pay off the loan. So that's going to be the general scenario that we're thinking about with the short sale. How does that line up in essence to your own real estate investment strategy? So the buyer of property is a third party, not the bank, and all proceeds from the sale go to the lender. So if the seller is selling the property and the property is worth less than the loan amount, they're going to sell the property for as much as they can, possibly not getting as much as they otherwise would due to the distressed situation. And they're going to have to take all that money and then pay it off to the loan that they owe to the bank. Even still, after having done that, not being able to basically pay off the full amount that they had owed to the bank due to the home being underwater, being less value than the loan, possibly that situation resulting from the value in the market for that particular area going down such that it would be below the actual loan amount. The lender has two options available. They can forgive the remaining balance or go after the homeowner through a deficiency judgment, which requires them to pay the lender all or part of the difference. So if you're on the lender situation, you're the bank, you're the third-party big player bank, you've got the seller trying to sell the property, they need to liquidate the property in order to move forward financially. The bank is going to be in a situation, should they simply accept the sales amount that it was sold for and say, hey, look, that's the best I can do at this point in time? Or are they going to look at that deficiency, the money they got versus the sales price, and then go after the borrower for the difference in that? And that will depend on the circumstances of the bank. Is it worthwhile for the bank? Are they going to be able to recover the money, or should they cut their losses at that point in time and take what they can get? In some states, the difference must legally be forgiven in a short sale. So you want to look at the laws related to the state laws with regards to the short sales. These kind of sales, because of the situation involved and the players involved and the dynamics with them, can be quite complicated. So you want to make sure that you're in alignment with those situations. And then if you're factoring this in to your real estate transactions, either as the seller who is in a distressed situation or the buyer, then you want to make sure that you've done your research in the particular area that you're in so that you can go through the process properly. A short sale in real estate involves selling a home for less than the balance remaining on the mortgage. So for example, a person may end up selling their house for $150,000 when there is still $175,000 remaining on the mortgage. So in other words, you have a loan, $175,000 in this case, and you can only sell the home on the market because the market rate is going for $150,000. Why would that happen? That could happen when the market goes down. So you took the loan out, possibly you put 20% down, or possibly you were in a situation for whatever reason where the bank didn't require that much down, and you took more loan lined up to the property value, and then the value of the property went down just because of the market. Now your home is worth less than the amount you owe on it. That situation, if you were planning on staying in the home for the entire 30 years, if you liked where you were at and you can pay the rent and everything's pushing forward, would not be the end of the world in that situation, because it would be painful to say, hey, look, I have a loan that's actually higher than the value of my home. But if you could still pay off the balance of the loan, then you could push forward. And if you still like where you are at and so on, it's not the end of the world. However, if you become in a financially distressed type of situation and or you would like to leave or move at some point in the future, this could be a problem, because you will not be able to sell the home and pay off the loan amount at that point in time. Clearly, the bank also has a problem, because the bank would like to have the loan and typically aligns the loans to be less than the home amount, because they don't want to be in the business of foreclosing typically, and they want to just use the home as collateral, so they're now exposed to that difference between what the home could be sold for, and that's going to add risk to the loan. In this example, the difference, $25,000 less any other selling costs, is considered the deficiency. So understanding short sales of real estate before process can begin, the mortgage lender must sign off on the decision to execute the short sale, also known as a pre-foreclosure sale. The lender, typically a bank, also needs documentation that explains why a short sale makes sense. So the bank is going to be the person in this situation who has the home as collateral on the loan, and the loan is an obligation. So notice you got two kind of things, as we talked about with regards to the loan and the mortgage going on here. One is simply the loan itself, the promise to pay. The fact that the home has gone down in value does not negate the fact that there's a promise to pay. The home is supposed to be collateral in the event that you don't pay, so that the bank has recourse in that event. So the promise to pay doesn't really go away just because the home happened to go down in value. What does go down is the lender or bank's ability to hold the borrower accountable in the event that they don't pay back the loan, because the value of the home is now less than the amount that is borrowed. So after all, the lending institution could lose a lot of money in the process. So the bank needs to think about what should they do at that point in time. What's the best scenario for them, just from a financial standpoint? Should they cut their losses and say, hey, look, we shouldn't have given the loan possibly in the first place, because we should have taken more down or something like that, and we're not likely to get our money back, or if we are to get it back, it's going to cost us more to try to collect on it than to just cut our losses at this point in time. So that's in essence the decision that the bank has to make at that point in time. And you could see it as generally a financial type of decision. Is it best for the bank at that point to cut their losses, or to continue to try to collect on the loan in the event that you have a distressed seller that's trying to sell it, probably in cash flow situations in terms of a distressed situation, and therefore you might want to basically make the sale at that point in time and cut your losses and take what you can get with regards to the paying off of the loan. That'd be the question. No short sale may occur without lender approval. Short sales tend to be lengthy and paperwork-intensive transactions, sometimes taking up to a full year to process. So because of the complexity involved, because of that decision-making process that is on the bank side of things, trying to determine whether or not it would be good to cut their losses at that point in time, or see if they can collect the full amount of the debt, the short sale can be a long, intensive process. However, short sales are not as detrimental to a homeowner's credit rating as a foreclosure. So the foreclosure would mean that the bank actually comes after the home, forecloses on the home, which is going to be not good for the credit score. So if you're at a situation on the seller side of things, their options tend to be at that point, they're saying, hey, I've got cash flow problems at this point in time. The home is actually underwater. I owe more on the mortgage than the value of the home. What are my options at this point? If I can't make the mortgage payments at that point, then you're in a situation where you might have a foreclosure type of situation, the bank then reclaiming the home at that time, which could be very bad for the credit, the bank then taking the initial action, or possibly a short sale might be available at that time, in which case you're going to be involved in the process, and that could be better for the credit rating. Remember, the bank doesn't really want to foreclose because the bank is not in the business of selling property. They're using the property as collateral to hope that they don't need to take any action in order to get the collection. That's kind of the threat that's going in place that they don't really want to carry out because they're not in the business of selling and buying homes. They're in the business of making loans. So if you can then come to a situation and say, hey, look, I'm in a cash flow situation at this point in time. I'm underwater. I'm doing whatever I can at this point in time, and it comes to the best terms on both you and the bank side. They determine financially that would be the best thing to do. You may be able to be in a better situation than not doing that, stopping the paying of the bills, and then having the foreclosure take place at that point in time, which is probably going to cost the bank more because then they got to take the action to push forward with that process. So a real estate short sale is unlike a short sale in investing. So if you hear short sale, you've probably heard it in terms of investing terms and in terms of a real estate terms. In investing, it could be a strategic type of move, and that might be a beneficial thing. It doesn't necessarily mean, in other words, that you're in a distressed situation and therefore at a disadvantage at the point in time that you make the trade. Whereas if you're talking about real estate, you are talking about generally someone who's in a financially distressed situation, and therefore options are limited at that point in time. An investing short sale is a transaction in which an investor sells borrowed securities in anticipation of a price decline and is required to return an equal number of shares at some point in the future. So they could sell their securities at now, which they think is the higher amount, get the higher dollar amount. And because all the securities are the same, they got to pay back the securities in the future. They buy back their securities later, which is going to be at a lower price if the price goes down over time. And therefore, it's kind of like an investment strategy, a risky one, but an investment strategy not representing basically a distressed kind of sale in the same sense of a distressed sale that they need to sell because of financial worries. Special considerations. So this is back to a short sale for real estate. So even though a short sale hurts a person's credit score less than a foreclosure, it's still a negative credit mark. So if you're choosing between, if you're in a distressed situation from a real estate standpoint, and you're choosing between a foreclosure type of situation because the mortgage can't be paid off and the home is underwater, or you're looking at a short sale situation, the short sale's probably better on the credit score, but it's still going to have an impact on it. So any type of property sale that is denoted by a credit company as not paid as agreed is a ding on the credit score. So remember, you got two things that happened here. You still took out a loan if you were in this situation, even the home went underwater. That means you still owe the money back on the loan because you took the risk out that the market's going to go up or down. So you got to pay it back. The fact that the home went down below the amount of the loan amount in terms of value doesn't negate the fact that you borrowed the money. That means that you took on the risk and the risk turned negative and you owe the money back. It does mean, again, the bank doesn't have the same kind of recourse. So if you don't pay back the loan, in essence, from a credit score standpoint, it will look bad from a credit score. But therefore, short sale, foreclosure, and deeds in lieu of foreclosure all negatively impact a person's credit. Special considerations: short sales don't always negate the remaining mortgage debt after a property is sold. So if you're in a short sale situation, the question is, if you process the short sale, will it relieve the rest of the debt, the difference between the property, which is below the loan amount, and the loan amount at that point, or will the lender still go after you and try to collect the difference? This is because there are two parts to all mortgages. The first is the lien against the property that is used to secure the loan, and the lien protects the lender in case a borrower can't repay the loan. So you got two things involved here. You got the loan, the promise to repay. That's kind of like a credit card. I mean, you took out a loan, you pay it back, and it doesn't. The property is kind of not connected in essence to the loan in that sense. You owe the money back. It's a promise to pay back. The loan is there as an added tool on the bank side of things in the event that you don't pay back the money that you promised to pay back, so that the bank has recourse. So the fact that the bank took the property or a short sale happened doesn't negate the fact that you borrowed the full amount of the loan. And if the property sale doesn't cover the full amount of the loan repayment, then the question is the bank going to forgive that amount because it would be financially advantageous for them to do so rather than try to go after it given the conditions at that point? Or do they think they can go after it and get the money? So it gives the lending institution the right to sell the property for repayment This part of the mortgage is waived in a short sale. So that's the question to consider. The second part of a mortgage is the promise to repay. Lenders can still enforce this portion either through a new note, so they might say we'll collect the difference and issue a new note for the difference that hasn't yet been collected, or the collection of the deficiency, or they might say we want to collect the deficiency, or are they going to basically waive it at that point in time? Whatever happens, the lender must approve the short sale, which means borrowers are sometimes at their whim. So in other words, the bank is basically going to be able possibly to make a determining factor as to whether or not they're going to accept the short sale as payment of the note or not. And it'll probably be a financial decision. They're going to say, hey, can we collect the difference, or is it not worth us to do so? And should we cut our losses? So short-term sale versus foreclosure. Short sales and foreclosures are two financial options available to homeowners who are behind on their mortgage payments, who have a home that is underwater, or both. So you got a situation you're not able to make the payments, you got a distressed situation, and your home is underwater. That would be when the short sale takes into case, or could possibly be an option. In both cases, the owner is forced to part with the home, but the timeline and consequences are different. Short sale versus foreclosure. A foreclosure is the act of the lender seizing the home after the borrower fails to make payments. So that's foreclosures, with the lenders the one that's going to be taking the action due to not having payments, then enforcing the fact that they have the home as collateral. Foreclosure is the last option for the lender. Unlike the short sale, foreclosures are only initiated by the lenders. So the foreclosure is going to be the lender basically taking action, whereas the short sale, you could be involved with the short sale process. The lender moves against the delinquent borrower to force the sale of a home, hoping to make on its initial investment of the mortgage. So they're trying to say, hey, I'm not going to get the mortgage money. I want to foreclose on the home, which they really don't want to do, because remember, everybody's unhappy in that situation, and especially in a situation where they're not going to get enough money when they sell it and have to pay for the selling costs in order to pay for the loan. Plus, the people moving out are going to be upset and so on. So they don't really want to go through the foreclosure process. But obviously, at some point in time, they have to take action, because that's what the threat is there to be in terms of the collateral on the loan. So also, unlike most short sales, many foreclosures take place after the homeowner abandons the home. So clearly, this is another situation where the lender doesn't want an abandoned home, or a home that's mistreated for some period of time, due to the fact that the homeowner no longer sees it as their home, and therefore they don't keep the upkeep as good. And if they leave the home, then that's going to have a quick deterioration in terms of the value of the home as well. Not good if you're trying to recover your loan amount as the lender. So if the occupants are still in the home, they are evicted by the lender. Short sale versus foreclosure. Once the lender has access to the home, it orders an appraisal and proceeds with trying to sell the home. Foreclosures do not normally take as long to complete as a short sale, because the lender wants to liquidate the asset quickly. So obviously they try to sell the home at that point in time. Foreclosed homes may also be auctioned off at a trustee sale, where buyers bid on the homes in a public process. A homeowner who has gone through a short sale may, with certain restrictions, be eligible to purchase another home immediately. Depending on the circumstances, homeowners who experience a foreclosure can expect to wait 2 to 7 years to purchase another home. So if you're in a short sale situation in certain circumstances and you want to buy another home shortly, you might be in a better situation than in a foreclosure situation to do so. A foreclosure is kept on a person's credit report for 7 years. While a foreclosure essentially lets you walk away from your home, albeit with grave consequences for your financial future, such as having a declare bankruptcy and destroy your credit, completing a short sale is labor intensive. So the easier thing to do is the foreclosure, but the short sale is probably the thing that's going to make you more financially sound in terms of, your trust and so on, with regards to being able to get a loan in the future. However, the payoff for the extra work involved in a short sale may be worth it. Before resigning yourself to a short sale, talk to your lender about the possibility of a revised payment plan or loan modification. So your steps probably would be, if you were in a distressed situation, would be not to try to just not pay off the loan and see what happens at that point in time. You would like to take action at some point in time. If we can't pay off the loan, talk to the bank and let them know, hey, we're in a situation where there's a financially distressed situation and I don't have the money to pay off the loan. The bank is in a situation where they're not going to want to foreclose unless it's a last case resort. So they might be willing to restructure in such a way that would be mutually beneficial, cutting their losses at that point. If they don't do that, then you might want to say, okay, well, is a short sale something that would be appropriate as opposed to a foreclosure that would be more beneficial than a foreclosure? And if not, then the foreclosure would typically be the last resort, you would think, on both sides of the transaction, both the lender and the buyer. One of these options might allow you to stay in your home and get back on your feet. Another possible option for staying in your home arises if you have private mortgage insurance, or PMI. Many homeowners who purchase homes with less than 20% down were required to purchase PMI with their homes. If the PMI, private mortgage insurance company, thinks you have a chance at recovering from your credit financial situation, it may advance funds to your lender to bring your payments up to date. So you might be able to get some cash flow in a short period of time that way. You would also, of course, need to convince them that this is something that you can recover from, so they could say, is this a wise financial investment for us to do? Eventually, you'll have to repay the advance. So we're referencing Investopedia, short sale, real estate, James Chen, Investopedia, a place you can go to look up investment-related terminology, continuing your research from there. They also update these from time to time, updated here, it looks like, or fact-checked on August 20th, 2021. So as time passes, you might want to check out the definitions over there and see if any changes have taken place.